Chapter 6. Grit. Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. Winston Churchill. My inspiration. The most compelling display of grit has, hands down, been the example demonstrated by my mom, Ruth Linham. For over 20 years, she worked as a phlebotomist in the laboratory at our local hospital in our quaint little town of about 1,200. She worked long hours and sometimes double shifts, spending most of the time walking from hospital room to hospital room on her feet. She lived the example and always pushed my sister and me to do our best and always give maximum effort. She would always tell me, "I don't care, even if you're cleaning floors as a janitor. You be the best janitor you can be and take pride in your work." After I left for college in 2000, she took a new job at a hospital located over 80 miles away from our house and a 1.5-hour commute each way. She worked the evening shift and was forced to travel the pitch-black highways swarming with deer. Over 1 year, she unfortunately had 2 head-to-head encounters as they aimlessly walked across the rural highways of Alabama at night. She would travel these roads for the next 5 years until she retired. Ultimately, her sacrifice paid for me to drive an almost new car while I was in college without having to work a job until my last year of school. Despite all the challenges and long days, she never complained one time and put in the work. In December 2018, she had a severe stroke that forced her to walk with a cane and left her with no use of her right hand. Despite these physically limiting challenges, she kept pushing to remain strong and independent, not needing mercy or pity from anyone. I would speak with my parents at least once a day. She would say, "Hey, baby, how are you doing today?" I would tell her I was doing good, and I had just finished up my Air Force work day. Then she would let me know how she was feeling. If she had an accident and fell during the day, she would let me know and tell me she was all right and not to worry. My mom passed away in June 2021 as I finished my draft manuscript for my publisher. As I stood beside her bed in ICU and in hospice for those 2 weeks, I intently examined the healing scars on her paralyzed right hand as well as the scars and healing scabs on her knees from the most recent of falls. It saddened me tremendously, the level of pain she endured over the last few years and the feeling of helplessness on my part to prevent it. After her passing, the following months were daunting as I completed my writing and kept Operation Invest moving along while creating a new normal. However, if I only have a tenth of the courage and grit she has shown, I know I will be able to sustain and continue to make her proud. Life is going to happen to all of us, whether we are in the hot pursuit of our dreams or just going through life aimlessly as a boat without a rudder. So why not live on purpose and never subdue to a fear of failure or stop in our tracks when faced with challenging situations? We all have doubts about our abilities and skills from time to time, but those who choose to keep moving in faith are victorious. In basketball, we say you miss every shot you don't take. I always recall the analogy for fear I picked up years ago from my dad's sermons. Fear is simply false evidence appearing real. The sooner you can realize your greatness, the sooner you will be able to obtain your success not only in real estate, but in every facet of your life. In Angela Duckworth's book, Grit, she provides the results of her years analyzing her students and the traits that led to success. She defined grit as passion and sustained persistence applied toward long-term achievement with no concern for rewards or recognition along the way. Ultimately, your passion is what it all comes down to. Angela also shared her viewpoint on passion and its impact on accomplishing goals. She insisted passion is not having something you care about. She exclaimed, "What I mean is that you care about the same ultimate goal in an abiding, loyal, steady way. You are not capricious. Each day, you wake up thinking of the questions you fell asleep thinking about. You are, in a sense, pointing in the same direction, ever eager to take even the smallest step forward than to take a step to the side, toward some other destination. At the extreme, one might call your focus obsessive. Most of your actions derive their significance from their allegiance to your ultimate concern, your life philosophy. You have your priorities in order. Fraud, flood, and fire. Real estate investing isn't exempt from challenges, whether it is a problem tenant, fraudulent property management companies, floods, or an apartment unit fire. One of the most challenging real estate investment stories I have ever heard contained all the above. I ran across this investor on Jerome Meyer's Multifamily Missteps podcast. During this episode, Randy Langendorfer shared his experience as a limited partner in a multifamily syndication located in Port Arthur, Texas, 150 miles east of Houston, Texas. The apartment syndication was led by 3 general partners, GPS, who had found a 225-unit apartment built in the early 1980s owned by a developer. We will discuss more about general partners in Chapter 11, which is dedicated to apartment investing. Their original plan was to leverage a bridge short-term loan, bringing occupancy up from 77% to 90% for days, and refinance it. After only 13 months, in September 2015, they refinanced the property and received 60% of their initial investment back. Things were running smoothly and right on schedule, so they thought. In February 2016, they received news from the general partners that the property management company committed fraud by mistaking occupancy and the amounts of rent received. These actions led to the mortgage company stepping in to manage all the funds for the property via lockbox. They had to find a new property manager, which had to be approved by the bank. It went on for months as the team tried to stabilize the property, understand what happened, and to complete renovations. However, in September 2017, Hurricane Harvey hit the Gulf Coast, Texas area and wiped out 112 units on the first floor with 3 feet of floodwater penetrating. This was almost catastrophic with the reduction of cash flow from those units required. Now, they started to fall behind on property payments. The bank slowed down on their renovation budget, which caused the lead general partner to put in between $400,000 and $500,000 of his own capital to prevent foreclosure. They continued to make progress until July 2018, when a fire broke out on the property, took out 15 units, and subsequently killed 3 young children left at home alone while their mother took a sick sibling to the hospital. Despite the fraud, a flood, a fire, and over $400,000 of personal capital, the general partner team found the grit to lead the project across the finish line in the middle of a pandemic in 2020. They continued to persevere and make all the necessary renovations to make the deal back profitable. The general partner team lead was able to sell in 2020 and give all investors their money back with zero gain over 6 years, but no money lost. The GP lead could get back almost 95% of his capital investment in keeping the deal above water during the operation period. No one could have predicted all these events would have happened, but the team decided to persevere. At the onset of those obstacles, they could have walked away and left their investors to lose their investment, but they showed an extreme amount of integrity and grit to get the job done. Ball boy to MVP. Growing up, I was extremely passionate and enjoyed both watching and playing the game of basketball. During the 90s, everyone wanted to be like Mike. Michael Jordan defied gravity and took the game to a whole new level with his athleticism and high-flying, tongue-wagging dunks. In 8th grade, I went to tryouts for basketball and made the team. I wasn't a natural talent and didn't play a whole lot. I was only 5 feet, 7 inches in 8th grade and maybe 140 pounds, soaking wet. However, I loved the sense of brotherhood that came from being on the team and the prestige of making the cut and being on the team. I didn't have any brothers growing up, so this was the closest thing for me. We won more games than we lost, and I had a great time just being on the team and learning the game. After getting a taste of the baller life in 8th grade, I tried out for the junior varsity team my freshman year. It was tough. You had guys in 9th, 10th, and 11th grade all trying out for a handful of open spots on the team. The competition was fierce. Everything was on another level. From the drills to the pressure to performing while being continuously assessed by the coaching staff, I came up short. I didn't make the cut. It was a gut-wrenching blow and self-esteem killer when I initially heard the news. My friend Tommy's dad was the junior varsity JV coach, and he gave me the opportunity to work as the team manager for the season. I was back on the team, but in a different capacity. This gave me a wonderful opportunity to see 2 high-performing teams operate from the practice court to bitter rival games on the road. Losing was an anomaly. Our JV team never lost more than 2 or 3 games the entire season. Our varsity team was no pushover. We had multiple Division I and II and junior college caliber athletes. I learned so much that year about the intangibles of the game and how much the little things mattered. My sophomore year, I made the junior varsity team. I learned my weakness and worked on them. I practiced on my jump shot and honed my skills. I didn't start, but I was able to contribute to the team and had a lot of fun along the way. In my junior year, I became a starter, and the game began to slow down for me. I was able to start seeing plays develop on the floor and have a larger impact on the game. I became more of a scorer and motivator that year. We won the Clark County JV tournament, and I was recognized on the all-county team. All my hard work was paying off. Over the summer, I was putting in the work. I didn't have a basketball goal at home. So I made my way a couple of miles to my cousin's house, where he and I had a couple of other neighborhood kids would battle it out, playing one-on-one or two-on-two for hours at a time. Here on the oak tree shaded dirt court is where I perfected my arsenal of moves on the court and my love for competition. In my senior year, I was named starting forward on our varsity team. All my hard work had paid off. My dream was to play varsity basketball and to have an opportunity to play in front of the large, packed gymnasiums. I didn't shy away from the moment. I averaged 11 points and 9 rebounds a game. We won our county tournament that year, along with our 4A area championship. Unfortunately, we lost to the Childsburg Tigers and Gerald Wallace, who went on to play 14 years in the NBA. The season culminated with me being named Team Most Valuable Player for our varsity team. I now realize how great an accomplishment it was to go from being the water boy to the MVP of the team. I reflect on what would have happened if I had chosen to give up and accept temporary defeat. You know the thoughts that pop in your mind when you face challenges in life or words that come out of the mouths of others who have succumbed to personal defeat. You will never be great. You will never make the team. Stick to just getting good grades. I didn't buy into the defeated mindset and walk away from the challenge. Life is no different. We all will face challenges in life that will require us to dust ourselves off and get back up in the race for our dreams. In the military, grit is almost a necessity. Our mission accomplishment can mean life or death for those depending on our success. As a real estate investor, the stakes aren't as high, but they are important when we start investing both our personal money and that of our private investor partners. Effort has a much larger impact on your success than talent alone. There are always smarter and more knowledgeable people in the world. However, most don't show up consistently. Furthermore, most people don't operate within their true passion, which limits their overall effectiveness. As real estate investors, we can recall the importance of obtaining financial freedom and achieving our passive income goals to motivate us through those tough moments. To be or to do. In my Air Force career, my long-term goals and aspirations hit a crossroad on whether I would continue to pursue a higher rank and a job as a commander or focus on achieving financial freedom while teaching others along the way. When the moment came, it was a normal, routine workday in early spring 2021 as I was settling into my new job. I loved it. I was back in the Northern Virginia area, working in another joint environment with sister service military members, civilians, and contractors. Away from the flagpole is how my mentor, Mr. Sherman Elliott, described being away from the core Air Force structure and my primary career field. Anyway, I came into the office following my normal tradition of logging into my computers and checking to see what's happened since the last shift. There wasn't anything out of the norm, so I moved along to check my Air Force email, and there it was. You are receiving this email because we believe you are in an eligible year group for the Material Leader Command Cadet Board. I sighed as I knew this day was coming, but with how busy we have been the last 3 months, the thought about applying for command hadn't come to the front of my mind. I paused, and I just sat there, staring at the screen. I recounted in my mind my first time going through the process and being selected to meet the board on my first look. My record and experience were above average, with my last stratification placing me number 2 out of 154 of my field grade officer peers in my parent organization with about 2,100 members. I was slated to move the following year, so the timing was perfect. I didn't receive one job interview. I remember asking my commander if he had spoken on my behalf with any of the potential organizations hiring, and he responded with, "No, I haven't. I've been busy." At that point, I knew it would be a long shot being selected with no one advocating on my behalf. It's not an immediate thing. It takes 6 months before all replacements have been identified and approved at the highest level of the Air Force. Once the news dropped in October 2019, I wasn't shocked or surprised by the result, but it caused me to reflect on my goals. A year earlier, in winter 2018, I was just returning from a 6-month deployment away from the family, with my wife being pregnant the entire time. This, by far, was the roughest pregnancy of the 3 for her, and I was nowhere to be found. We train all the time to be proficient at our jobs and accomplish the mission. But not a lot can prepare you for being absent from your family for an extended period. This weighed heavily on me. So, with no command job on the horizon, it was time to apply for new positions so we could relocate to our next duty station. I listed out my top 15 job locations, with the top 5 being Huntsville, Alabama, so I could lead a large joint acquisition program. I had a great interview with the hiring colonel, and they added me to the top of their candidate pool. I didn't get the job. I ended up with my number 11 job back in Northern Virginia. It wasn't a bad gig, but I was trying to stay within the South to be somewhat close to my aging parents. The more research I did on the job and the organization, the more I liked it. So much so, I declined meeting my commander board that spring so I could keep the job and not to go through the whole process of trying to lobby for someone to help me get hired again. I would risk being hired and relocating to who knows where in charge of who knows what. I snapped out of my daze and knew it was decision time. I was in a good organization, just promoted to a deputy management position after being in my job 3 months. We bought a great foreclosure with equity in it. We had friends in the area. The family was happy, and Johnny the Third was doing great in school. Besides dropping the poop emoji in the class chat room one day, if I choose to, I could extend 1.5 years, find a new job in the DC area, and potentially retire here. Did I want to uproot the family another time to accomplish my goal of being a commander? It was gut check time. I thought back to one of the original aviation pioneers we studied throughout our professional military education curriculum, John Boyd. As a fighter pilot, he had fought in 3 wars and was undefeated. He was nicknamed 42nd Boyd for his standing bet as an instructor pilot. Beginning from a position of disadvantage, he could defeat any opposing pilot in less than 40 seconds. Unrivaled in the cockpit, his mind was also without rival, as he was a warrior philosopher as well. He was extremely polarizing, with his never take no for an answer approach when he knew he was right, and conviction in challenging the status quo. Upon being passed over for promotion, Boyd was deeply affected. His biographer, Robert Coram, wrote, "This was a pivotal event in his career, as well as a personal epiphany. Often, when a man is young and idealistic, he believes that the success will follow if he works hard and does the right thing. This was what Boyd's mother and childhood mentors had told him. But hard work and success do not always go together in the military, where success is defined by rank. And reaching a higher rank requires conforming to the military's value system. Those who do not conform will one day realize that the path of doing the right thing has diverged from the path of success, and then they must decide which path they will follow through life. I'm no rebel or one with extremely polarizing views, as was Boyd, but I felt his pain. I had done everything within my power, led a billion-dollar development program, led intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, ISR, operational teams forward, ranked extremely high amongst my peers, and excelled in multiple joint operational environments, but for some reason it wasn't enough. Boyd's final decision came down to one phrase: to be or to do. Robert Coram captured a quote from Boyd as he spoke to a group of his mentees. One day, you will come to a fork in the road, and you're going to have to make a decision about which direction you want to go. He raised his hand and pointed. If you go that way, you can be somebody. You will have to make compromises, and you will have to turn your back on your friends. But you will be a member of the club, and you will get promoted, and you will get good assignments. Then Boyd raised his other hand and pointed another direction. Or you can go that way, and you can do something. Something for your country, and for your Air Force, and for yourself. If you decide you want to do something, you may not get promoted, and you may not get good assignments. And you certainly will not be a favorite of your superiors, but you won't have to compromise yourself. You will be true to your friends and to yourself, and your work might make a difference. To be somebody or to do something. In life, there is often a roll call. That's when you will have to decide to be or to do. Which way will you go? I went the other way. I wanted to do for my current organization, do for my family, and do more immediately for those I could help outside of the military. Implementation. Real estate investing can get gritty. As I write these words, we had a buyer rejected by their lender on day 40 of our purchase contract. Life happens as it did with my mom suddenly passing in the middle of writing this book. I shared the story of how a real estate investor team overcame fraud, flood, and fire over the course of ownership of a multi-family project. What challenges have you overcome in your past where you have shown grit to persevere? The great thing for everyone when it comes to having grit is it is teachable. During a sit-down with the Center for Healthy Minds, Angela Duckworth laid out a few tips to build more grit. Her first recommendation was to develop your passion and your interest. Her second recommendation was to cultivate deliberate practice, which allows you to master a skill and improve performance. Her last suggestion was to find meaningfulness in whatever we do. This sense of purpose has a strong correlation to the individual's assignment of grit. Are there any current challenges in your real estate journey requiring you to have more grit? Our lives and careers are always demanding high quality and high quantity effort toward our goals. If you aren't where you want to be in your real estate journey, what steps do you need to take to get back on track? In our next chapter, we dive into the importance of networking, mentorship, and aligning ourselves with other like-minded investors.